So when we think about the survey data that we receive from you guys as financial mutants, we know that right now, the median household income for the average American is about $75,000 a year for those aged 20 to 29. But when we think about the financial mutants, you guys that responded and answered our survey, for those of you in your 20s, the median household income was a whopping $120,000.
That kind of blew my mind because if you remember, some of my milestones was I wanted to have six-figure income by the time I was 31. So to see that our audience is actually well into six figures in their 20s is amazing. Now, a lot of you are probably noticing, hey, where's the Abound Wealth? Because you guys are doing this comparison of these three key categories. Where are they at? And here's the reality of the situation. We do have a few clients, just a handful of clients in their 20s. Majority of our clients are in their 30s and 40s.
Right.
So we just didn't have enough data to actually put an Abound Wealth number for the 20s. But don't worry, they'll be there for the 30s, 40s, and beyond. But it is interesting to note with the big comparison in your 20s is the financial mutant, you, the audience members, compared to the typical American.
Now, before we dive into net worth, I think it is important for us to delineate how we count net worth for purposes of this show versus how the U.S. Census Bureau is doing it. So when we take the data from the Federal Reserve, when they look at financial assets, they're looking at checking and money market accounts, CD accounts, bonds, stocks, retirement accounts, cash value of whole life insurance, pensions, and other financial assets. But when we ask, either on the Financial Mutant survey or via our Abound Wealth client survey, we really want to hone in on investable net worth. We want to be talking about only the assets like your Roth IRAs, your HSAs, your 401ks, 403bs, 457s, taxable brokerage accounts, or trust accounts. We want those assets, those accounts that you are considering for your long-term financial independence. So when you look at our numbers, they're not going to include cash. They're not going to include emergency fund. They're not going to include emergency savings or any sort of real estate home equity type values. It's only liquid investable net worth, because that is the money that you can actually turn into living expenses.
So if I was hearing that difference, and the big part is the cash reserves being taken out, a lot of you are going to be like, well, wow, that's probably a significant amount. You're probably going to undercut what's going on for the financial mutants and the Abound Wealth clients. Oh, don't you worry. You'll see, even with that conservative assumption of removing what likely for most people is 3 to 6 months of living expenses off of what's investable net worth, you guys are a very disciplined group, and you're not going to disappoint.
All right, so let's look at this. Remember, if we think about the average income for someone in their 20s, the average American has an income of about $75,000, but the financial mutant on average has an income of about $120,000. That's just the shovel. When we think about how they turn that income into actual liquid financial net worth, the average American has financial assets, this includes their cash, of just under $14,000. But when you look at our financial mutants, at you guys that responded to the survey, $120,000, exactly equal to 1 times the average salary for those in their 20s.
Look, I'm hoping the audience, I know we'll break this up into age categories, but I do hope everybody notices a trend here as you watch the 30s, 40s, and beyond, is that the typical American, we hear all the time about the latte effect. People, focus on the little decisions. That's what's hitting. And I always say, look, it's not the latte effect. It's really the cars that you're buying. It's the houses. But I think there's something to the fact that the income of the typical American is $75,000. And by the way, this data could skew up close to 6 figures if you took out people over 65 years of age. So this number is actually even higher for the average American, yet it never shows up in net worth. And I think that this is a key discipline problem. This is what you're going to find out is the difference between financial mutants, Abound Wealth clients, is that these people, yes, they make good incomes, but it's also back to, why do you think that is? There's a discipline muscle that probably goes into life decisions as well. It breaks my heart that the typical American just is not turning that valuable, powerful thing of wages and labor and turning that into actual usable army of dollar bills. You're going to see this throughout the study.
Now, one of the things we want to lay out for you is, are you ahead of the curve, behind the curve, or on the curve? And the fact is that in your 20s can look very different. Some people don't go to college and they start working when they're 18 years old. And some people don't even get out of college until they're in their 30s. And so What we want you focusing on in your 20s is not, am I ahead of the curve, behind the curve, on the curve? In your 20s, we want you focusing on those behaviors. We want you focusing on exactly what Brian said. How am I turning the money that I'm earning, the income that I'm creating into wealth that will build over the long term? And if you can master those behaviors in your 20s, then the picture starts to get a lot more exciting as you move into your 30s.